When my elder sister was born, she was bestowed the title of saintess by the emperor because of a natural lotus mark on her forehead. To pacify foreign tribes, she volunteered to marry into the Xiongnu, becoming a role model for all noble ladies in the capital. As a daughter of a concubine, I also benefited from her fortune and was granted a marriage into the Eastern Palace by the emperor. However, on the eve of the wedding, the legal wife schemed to swap our bridal veils and exchanged our wedding sedans. My elder sister was sent to the Eastern Palace to become the crown princess, while I was forced to marry far away to the Xiongnu. In my previous life, I risked my life to break into the Eastern Palace seeking the truth. To protect her reputation, my elder sister insisted on hanging herself. Though the crown prince stopped her in time, she still suffered a miscarriage due to the shock. The crown prince was furious, accusing me of being jealous of my sister's saintly reputation and deliberately framing her. He summoned 10 beggars to defile me, then forced me onto the wedding sedan to the Xiongnu. My elder sister took my place to become the crown princess, gave birth to triplets, and was revered as a virtuous empress, leaving her name in history, while I was falsely accused of adultery, beheaded, and died a tragic death outside Yanmen Pass. When I woke up again, I rushed to open the door before the matchmaker could. The guests outside immediately erupted into an uproar upon seeing me. The matchmaker's smile instantly froze. "Second miss, weren't you already sent to the Eastern Palace in the bridal sedan?" The relatives and friends of the Prime Minister's residence in the courtyard instantly crowded in front of me, speaking in shock. "What's going on? Did she get into the wrong bridal sedan? Hurry and bring back the bridal sedan." Entering the wrong sedan is a crime of deceiving the emperor. My stepmother held me tightly in her arms and wept, warning, "How could you be so foolish? Although you are a concubine-born daughter, I have always treated you as my own, never giving you less than anything. I know you despise the crown prince, but how could you, just because you dislike him, scheme to have your elder sister marry him instead?" As soon as my stepmother finished speaking, everyone immediately exchanged glances. In their eyes, I had already become a disloyal and unjust person, jealous of my legitimate elder sister and disrespectful to the royal family. Watching her smug expression as she took in the reactions of everyone present, I couldn't help but recall the previous life, when she, who had always treated me with cold disdain, suddenly embraced me in front of everyone. At that time, I thought that since we were family, she was genuinely standing up for me in this critical moment. Little did I know that she would directly distort the truth and pin the charge of disrespecting the royal family and defying the imperial decree on me, and as a titled lady, she expelled me from the family register. When my father returned from Jiangnan, she and my elder sister twisted the facts, claiming I had disrespected the royal family. My father was immediately enraged, calling me a disgrace and ordering that no one was to collect my body. And now, she is using the same old trick again. How could I possibly let her manipulate me this time? I subtly withdrew from her embrace, tears falling in large drops, raising her injured hand for everyone to see. "What is mother saying? Last night, you told me that my sister was marrying into the Xiongnu, and since the journey was long and inconvenient to bring the Konghu along, you asked me to pluck the strings one by one as a keepsake for my sister. I spent the whole night plucking them until my hands were bleeding, and when I woke up, my sister was gone, and the wedding dress had disappeared too." The expressions of the crowd shifted again. Such matters within the inner household were immediately clear to the women. Warning, my late mother's close friend, the wife of the Marquis of Yongchang, stepped out from the crowd and tightly grabbed hold of me. "Back me up. It was you who forced the Prime Minister to demote his wife to a concubine in order to marry into the Prime Minister's residence back then. Now that you know how harsh the northern border is, you scheme to have Warning marry there, while your own daughter marries into the Eastern Palace to enjoy wealth and honor." The stepmother looked flustered for a moment, then squeezed out 2 more tears. "All I've done is for the sake of the concubine-born daughter, and now I'm the villain. Warning. You tell everyone yourself how I've treated you on a daily basis." The moment she raised her hand, I fearfully covered my head. She looked as if she was used to being bullied, her sleeves sliding down to reveal arms covered in blue and purple bruises. Lady Yongchang rolled up her sleeve and demanded, What happened to this arm? Someone with sharp eyes pushed my hair aside and shouted, "Why is the second daughter of the Prime Minister's family covered in bruises under her hair?" The people from the Yongchang Marquis household listened, then cast a sharp, scrutinizing gaze over the legal mother. "Someone, call the imperial physician to examine the injuries." Imperial physician Jiang, who was a cousin of the Yongchang Marquis's wife, immediately came to the Prime Minister's residence upon hearing of the incident. He examined the wounds on my body, carefully inspected the marks left by the zither strings on my hands, smelled the strings, and immediately drew a conclusion. The injuries on Warning's body were caused by years of being beaten by others. However, the most fatal part is that the zither strings were coated with a strong dose of knockout drug. The drug seeped into Warning's body through the wounds on her hands, causing her to fall unconscious without realizing it. It's truly a blessing from heaven that Warning is able to wake up now. I staggered as if about to fall, tears streaming down like rain. "Mother, why would you harm me like this? I have always respected you and my elder sister, never daring to overstep even a little. Now that my sister is wearing my wedding dress to marry the crown prince, if the emperor finds out, wouldn't that be the crime of deceiving the sovereign? At best, my sister would be expelled from the Eastern Palace. At worst, our entire family would face the punishment of being executed to the 9th degree. Mother, if you won't think of me, won't you at least consider father's career?" The legal mother knew that if things escalated, it would be difficult to resolve. Kneeling on the ground, she wiped her tears with a handkerchief. "Warning, no matter how many wrongs there are, they are all my fault as your mother. Changning was just terrified by the northern border and ended up doing such a foolish thing. You are her younger sister, so you can understand her, right? If this gets exposed, Changning will surely die tonight. You wouldn't want to cause your own sister's death, would you, Warning? I know your maternal grandmother's family has been imperial merchants for generations and holds the late emperor's iron certificate. Even if this is brought before the emperor, there's still room for negotiation. But your sister is different. If her engagement is broken off, her life will be ruined. You two sisters have always been close, so swapping marriages shouldn't be a big deal. Why not just pretend it was your own choice to exchange marriages with your sister?" The lady of Yongchang was so furious that she slapped her directly across the face. "A daughter of the Prime Minister's household simply cannot be so foolish as to marry like this. What do you mean by voluntarily exchanging marriages? Clearly, you want to have it both ways, gaining the reputation for willingly marrying for peace, while avoiding the hardship of marrying into a foreign alliance and making Warning clean up your mess. Now that the truth is out, you want Warning to bear the blame and take on the charge of deceiving the emperor. First, you stole Warning's birth mother's husband, and now you've incited Changning to steal Warning's marriage. Do you really think there's no one in the capital who can hold you accountable?" The legal mother showed no fear. "I am the wife of the Prime Minister. With the master away from the residence, all matters, big and small, are entrusted to me. Naturally, I have the final say in the marriage of the young ladies in the household. Even if your Yongchang Marquis manor is powerful, this is the inner residence of the Prime Minister's mansion. What right do you have to speak here?" I stared into the legal mother's eyes. "What about my dowry? When my sister married into the Eastern Palace, what was carried away was the dowry my mother left for me." Her eyes flickered. "You're being too distant. Sisters are one and the same. There's no distinction between yours and mine. Whatever is carried out of the Prime Minister's mansion is the mansion's dowry. In my past life, it was the same. The legal sister snatched away my marriage and also took all the dowry my mother had left behind. My stepmother had long calculated that I was too timid and afraid of causing trouble to dare defy her openly and demand what was rightfully mine. But this time, whatever is mine, no one can take it away." Lady Yongchang, with her righteous demeanor, was genuinely angry on my behalf. Such insatiable greed. Back then, you exploited the lotus mark on Changning's forehead to reap every benefit, then volunteered to marry into the Xiongnu to quell the war, gaining both fame and fortune. Yet after achieving all that, you turned around and snatched your half-sister's marriage, and now, you even dare to seize the last support left by the deceased for their child. You ought to be brought before the emperor and have this matter settled in court, Recalling the experiences of my past life, I held on to the lady of Yongchang Manor. I rose and walked out of the mansion, where I saw the Xiongnu envoy and bowed to him. Your Excellency, there may be unforeseen changes regarding the marriage alliance today. My elder sister has impersonated me and married into the Eastern Palace. I am willing to take her place and fulfill the marriage alliance. I wonder if the Xiongnu king would be willing. The envoy did not expect me to step forward and lay out the entire situation to him directly. A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. Men of the desert do not stand on ceremony. What matters is the attitude. Since the noble ladies of Dazhao are willing to enter the bridal sedan of their own accord, the Xiongnu will still treat them with the rights befitting a principal consort. Good, however, before that, I must ask you to do one thing for me. I reached an agreement with him in a voice only the two of us could hear. In the Eastern Palace, the emperor had just finished the tea offered by the crown princess and was looking at the perfect couple with great joy. Suddenly, the moment was interrupted by the sound of the grievance drum. Everyone present felt that something was terribly wrong. The royal grievance drum had not been struck for centuries. Your Majesty, this commoner woman has a grievance to report. As I appeared at the entrance of the hall with the lady of Yongchang, the joyous music in the entire hall abruptly ceased. Upon seeing me outside the main hall, the stewardess stepped forward and lifted the bride's veil. A deathly silence fell over the hall. Isn't this the eldest daughter of the Jiang family, who volunteered for the marriage alliance? How could she be here? Why is the second young lady standing outside the hall beating the drum? What on earth is happening? The emperor's face was as dark as water. Jiang Chongning, why are you here instead of going for the marriage alliance? What exactly is going on? Jiang Chongning fearfully hid behind the crown prince, her eyes darting around as she struggled to come up with a response. I knelt on the ground, holding the imperial edict of marriage, my voice hoarse. Your Majesty, I have come to return the imperial decree. Last night, my mother mentioned that the northern border is remote and my sister is extremely fond of the Konghu, so she asked me to help remove the strings as a keepsake. Little did I know that the strings had been coated with a sedative. I have no idea how I fell asleep and missed the auspicious hour. When I woke up this morning, I discovered that the wedding dress, jewelry, and even the bridal sedan were all gone. Fearing I would miss the auspicious hour, I had no choice but to rush here to seek your Majesty's forgiveness. To my surprise, I heard that His Highness the Crown Prince has already welcomed the bride. I have come specifically to return the imperial decree. The emperor's gaze sharpened like a blade as he turned to the crown prince. Crown Prince, when you welcomed the crown princess, did you not notice anything unusual? Jiang Xian stiffened, forcing himself to remain calm. Your Majesty. The woman in the sedan chair was wearing the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes, which complied with the regulations. I married her according to the rites and did not lift the veil to take a closer look. I lifted my head, revealing a look of alarm. The phoenix crown and ceremonial robes. No wonder the wedding dress was gone when I woke up. The emperor's gaze lingered on the crown prince's hand resting on the legitimate sister's waist for a moment, his eyes suddenly turning cold. Jiang Chongning fell to her knees with a thud, feeling extremely wronged. Last night, my sister kept saying she already had someone in her heart and refused to marry into the Eastern Palace. She got completely drunk, and this morning, no matter how much we tried, we couldn't wake her up. The Crown Prince's wedding sedan has already arrived at the mansion gate. I had no choice but to take her place in the sedan. She wore an expression of helplessness, and I spoke in confusion. Sister, are you not getting it backwards? Last night, it was you who clung to Mother, crying and refusing to marry into the Northern Border Alliance, insisting that I stay and sleep with you. Thinking back now, was it all just to make it easier to swap my wedding dress? Jiang Chongning's face turned deathly pale, her body swaying unsteadily. What kind of talk is this, sister? Chongning only took your place in the marriage because she was afraid you would miss the auspicious time and ruin the reputation of the Prime Minister's residence. We can switch back later. Since we were young, haven't I always let you have the best of everything? How could you think of me this way when I only meant to help you? She cried so hard she could barely speak. The Crown Prince couldn't help but shield her in his arms. His eyes filled with pity. He cast a cold glance at me. Since second Miss Jiang was unwilling to marry me, why come and make a scene now? Changning helped you out of a difficult situation, and instead of being grateful, you turn around and blame her. I have already completed the wedding ceremony with Changning. She is now my wife. As things stand, it's clear you were never meant to be the crown princess. I watched them coldly. In my previous life, they had conspired in the same way to pin the charges of disrespecting elders and defying the royal family on me. Their united front against a common enemy was instead praised as a perfect match. Like a golden couple, they tarnished my name while presenting themselves as pure and unblemished before others. How could such a thing be justified? I let out a faint laugh. Since my sister is so considerate as to marry in my place for my sake, I dare not take her place in marriage. After all, I don't have the lotus mark on my head like my sister does, and I cannot pacify the Xiongnu in the northern border. Jiang Changning's gaze faltered for a moment, and when she looked up again, her eyes were pitiful. Sister, are you trying to force me to my death? I have already performed the wedding ceremony with the crown prince and am now his wife. Are you now forcing me to marry someone else? Is your reputation so precious, while mine is treated like worthless weeds? The prince's heart softened under her gaze, but the look he gave me grew even colder and more disdainful. Everyone in the hall whispered among themselves, casting probing and contemptuous glances my way, as if confirming my guilt of being ungrateful and having illicit affairs. I smiled faintly and slowly took something out of the box containing the imperial edict. I know my sister values her reputation more than her life, so what I quietly took out left everyone in the hall utterly shocked. That is a sleeping robe embroidered with a golden dragon, which only the crown prince is allowed to wear. I gently laid the robe on the ground, but it felt like a thunderclap echoing through the silent hall. I took in their expressions and chuckled lightly. This rare sleeping robe, which only the crown prince is permitted to wear, was found in my sister's bridal sedan. It's easy for people to misunderstand the relationship between my sister and His Highness the Crown Prince. Without giving them a chance to argue, I took out a small dragon-patterned seal. The Crown Prince has even given his personal seal to you. Sister, it seems your relationship is truly extraordinary. The Emperor, in a fit of rage, casually threw a teacup at the Crown Prince's head. As I spoke, I took out a foot of brocade cloth and began to fiddle with it. I just don't know what this is. Perhaps you could explain it. Sister, a sharp-eyed woman immediately exclaimed, isn't this the belly-binding cloth used by pregnant servants to hide their condition? I've seen servants who were trying to conceal their pregnancy wrap this around themselves. Jiang Changning's eyes were red. This is not mine. I never thought my sister would hate me so much, to the point of slandering my innocence before the Emperor. With that, she rushed toward a pillar. The Crown Prince hurriedly stopped her, his eyes filled with heartache. Changning, don't, enough, the Emperor roared, throwing the prayer beads in his hand. Everyone in the hall immediately knelt in unison. Now that the evidence is clear, Crown Prince, what do you have to say for yourself? I had no idea you were so audacious as to pull a switch right under my very eyes. You disdain the Crown Princess I chose for you, and yet you dare to replace her in such a manner. How bold of you. Crown Prince. The Crown Prince tightened his arm around Jiang Changning and said in a low voice, your son and Changning are deeply in love with each other. I beg your majesty to grant us your blessing. The moment the Empress Dowager stepped into the hall, she was so enraged that her entire body trembled. What nonsense. Jiang Changning is the Lotus Saintess personally approved by the Imperial Astronomical Bureau, destined to marry into the northern lands to quell the war. How can she, the chosen one by heaven, be allowed to stay? I am the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household. For the sake of the Prime Minister's residence and the royal family's reputation, I am willing to erase this lotus mark and live as an ordinary person from now on. As she spoke, she picked up a hairpin and was about to slash it fiercely across her forehead. No need to cut yourself, a bowl of water will suffice. I quickly grabbed the tea from the table and splashed it onto her face. As expected, the lotus mark dissolved upon contact with the water. The guests exclaimed in surprise. The Lotus Saintess was actually a fake. The mark had been painted on by Jiang Changning herself. This was the crime of deceiving the Emperor. Jiang Changning instantly panicked. Kneeling on the ground and trembling uncontrollably, the crown prince's eyes flashed with a fierce glare. Jiang Wanning, what trick did you play to make Chungning's lotus mark disappear? I'm telling you. Chungning is the natural-born lotus saintess, far beyond the reach of a commoner like you. It was you and your long-dead mother, consumed by jealousy, who stole the position of the legitimate wife from Chungning's mother back then. Chungning, kind-hearted as she is, has been tolerating you everywhere in the Prime Minister's residence, and now you dare to slander her like this. You have no respect for your elders. The Lady of Yongchang was furious. What does His Highness the Crown Prince mean by this? He was supposed to marry the younger sister, yet he secretly exchanged vows with the elder sister. On the wedding night, he replaced the bride with the elder sister to humiliate Wanning, and now he claims that Wanning has no respect for her superiors. Is the royal family trying to wrong Wanning to death tonight? Your Majesty, please see the truth. Back then, Chungning's mother bribed the imperial astronomer to declare her the lotus fate. But in reality, Wanning is the true lotus saintess. How could she be compared to this painted fake? The lotus mark is on Wanning's body. Your Majesty, Empress Dowager, I beg you to stand up for this orphaned girl. If you do not believe it, you can have her examined publicly. Yes. The one with the lotus mark on the forehead is actually me. Back then, my father favored his concubine over his wife and forced my mother to give up her position as the legitimate wife. The lotus mark on my forehead became a thorn in the eyes of Jiang Chungning and her son. In order to steal the fate of the lotus saintess, they personally carved out the mark from my forehead. They replicated the exact same pattern on Jiang Chungning's forehead, but they didn't know that a more elegant and noble lotus had bloomed in my heart, greater, more sacred. Jiang Chungning's face turned deathly pale upon hearing the word inspection. Her fingers clutching the crown prince's sleeve tightly as she desperately tried to signal him with her eyes, her gaze filled with terror and a plea for help. The crown prince thought Jiang Chungning was merely frightened, and he remained full of confidence in her. Without a trace of worry, he grasped her icy fingers. Chungning, don't be afraid, I want to see what other tricks she can pull. The ministers in the main hall could see clearly that in this situation, the crown prince had already lost completely. Does the crown prince still believe that Wanning is the villain? Does he not realize at all that he is holding a venomous snake in his arms? Then let's wait and see. With a calm expression, I knelt to pay respects to the Empress Dowager. Since His Highness the Crown Prince is so convinced that my elder sister is the Lotus Saint, and I am fortunate to have the Lady of Yongchang Manor speaking up for me, then let the verification proceed. Otherwise, I would never be able to clear my name even if I jumped into the Yellow River. I beg your Majesty and the Empress Dowager to grant me justice. The Empress said coldly. Granted, proceed with the verification immediately. I want to see for myself who the Lotus Saint truly is. A screen was set up to partition the hall, and the Empress Dowager, accompanied by a group of female attendants, stepped forward to conduct the examination personally. I gently unbuttoned my clothes, revealing a noble lotus blooming on my chest. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but reach out to touch it. This lotus, growing on my chest, seemed to be naturally budding as if born there. The people around couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. The Emperor said in a deep voice, "Mother Empress, has the verification been completed?" The Empress Dowager slowly stepped forward and nodded to the Emperor. Looking at the excited expressions of the women present, the truth was clear at a glance. The Crown Prince's face turned ashen. This must be Jiang Wanning's doing. Chungning is the true Lotus Saint. He turned to pull Jiang Chungning. Chungning, go and prove it to them. Let them know who the true Lotus Saintess is. Jiang Chungning saw the skeptical gazes filling the hall and then looked at the Crown Prince's bloodshot eyes. Overwhelming fear completely seized her. Suddenly, she clutched her stomach, let out a sharp cry, and collapsed to the ground, drenched in cold sweat. Ah! My stomach. In her previous life, she relied on the dragon fetus in her womb and her lotus fate to securely hold her position in the Eastern Palace, even as a substitute bride. But now, I will certainly not fall into her trap. Sister, what's wrong? Your complexion looks so pale. I took her hand and passed it to Physician Jiang, who had entered the palace with me. The imperial physician's expression changed as soon as he took her pulse. "Your Majesty, Miss Jiang is already 3 months pregnant." At this point, I threw the belt I had just taken off at her, leaving Jiang Chongning with no room for argument. I turned around and slapped Jiang Chongning hard. "Volunteer for a political marriage. From the very beginning, this was your scheme to marry the Crown Prince. You and the Crown Prince have been secretly involved. And now you're pregnant, even deceiving the Emperor. How dare you still pretend to be a chaste and virtuous woman here?" She covered her face and desperately shrank back, clinging to the Crown Prince's leg and begging, "Crown Prince, I am innocent. You must save me. I am your wife, and today I have suffered such humiliation. You must stand up for me. My sister will not rest until she has driven me to my death. She has slandered me with a fatal curse and stolen my destiny. Do you think she is only targeting me? No, as husband and wife, we are one. She will not stop until she has destroyed us both." I sneered, still trying to brainwash the Crown Prince. "Who exactly stole from whom? The 180 dowry chests my mother left for me were all carried into the Eastern Palace by you. How dare you accuse me of stealing from you?" Jiang Chongning, driven to desperation and with nothing left to lose, shrieked, "I am the Lotus Saintess. I carry the imperial heir within me, blessed with the true dragon's bloodline. Why should I fear a fraud like you?" Before the words were finished, dark clouds suddenly loomed overhead. A bolt of lightning struck Jiang Chongning. "Ah, my stomach!" Jiang Chongning was instantly struck to the ground, blood spreading beneath her skirt. She had a miscarriage. The Crown Prince was so agitated that he lost his senses. He wanted to step forward but was afraid of being struck by lightning. He kept backing away, blurting out incoherently, "It's not true. It's Jiang Guaning. Yes, it must be her. She's the one who set up this scheme to frame Chongning. It must be, it must be." He suddenly threw himself at the Empress Dowager's feet. "Grandmother, you've always loved me the most. You must believe me. Chongning has been wronged. You must stand up for your grandson's wife." The Emperor looked at the Crown Prince with disgust, his eyes filled with disappointment in his air. He immediately ordered, "Jiang Chongning, the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family, has stolen her half-sister's destiny, deceived the Emperor, impersonated the Crown Princess in defiance of the imperial decree, and feigned a marriage alliance while being disloyal as a subject. Her crimes are heinous and too numerous to record." The Crown Prince frantically shielded the unconscious Jiang Chongning with his own body. He refused to let anyone take her away. He roared, "She is my wife, the Crown Princess I married with full ceremonial rights. No one can take her away from me. I forbid it. You disgrace." The Empress slapped the Crown Prince, sending him tumbling to the ground. "Now, you still want to protect this despicable woman? Are you going to defy your own father's command?" The Emperor wearily rubbed his brow. Tonight, the Crown Prince completely tarnished the royal family's dignity in front of all the ministers. He turned his head slightly to look at me. "Jiang Guaning, you have been wronged. Whatever you want, I will grant it to you." To save the royal family's face, he had no choice but to do this. "Now, no matter what I say, he will agree." I bow my head slightly. "Your Majesty is wise. As a mere commoner and the daughter of a concubine from the Prime Minister's household, to have the honor of beholding your divine countenance and clearing my name is already an immense glory. Your servant is overwhelmed with gratitude." The Crown Prince, with a frenzied expression, lunged at me and pinned me down beneath him. "You're actually grateful. You destroyed my Chongning, and now you act grateful. Are you proud of yourself? I will destroy you too. I will kill you. Don't think that just because you brought down Chongning, I will look at you with any more favor or make you my Crown Princess. Impossible, even if you have the destiny of a lotus. I won't spare you a single glance. You're not worthy. I've known since childhood that you have a malicious heart. You're not even fit to compare to a single strand of your elder sister's hair. How dare you dream of marrying me? Keep dreaming, outrageous." The Empress was about to reprimand him when the Emperor cut her off. "Jiang Guaning, I see you are both brave and resourceful. How about joining my harem?" The Emperor looked at me greedily. The Crown Prince looked at the Emperor in shock, his lips trembling as he opened his mouth in disbelief. Suddenly, an announcement came from outside the hall. "The Xiongnu envoy has arrived." Everyone was awake. suddenly realizing they had been entangled in the matter of the crown princess's substitute marriage for too long, so long that they had forgotten why the crown princess had to be substituted in the marriage. They had completely forgotten that there was still a peace marriage alliance scheduled for today. The Xiongnu envoy entered the hall, glanced around, and took in all the events unfolding within the grand hall. He spoke lightly, "Your Majesty, may I ask where our Xiongnu princess is? The bridal carriage sent by our king has been waiting outside the Prime Minister's residence for a long time. Could it be that Great Zhao has changed its mind and wishes to go to war?" I took a deep breath and bowed deeply to the emperor. "Your subject is willing to take my sister's place in the marriage alliance with the Xiongnu, to ensure the joy of union between our two nations." The crown prince looked up in disbelief. His gaze toward me was filled with doubt. The emperor said with a serious expression, "Warning, there is no need for this. We have other arrangements for you." I refused to comply and remained kneeling on the ground, pleading my case. "I beg your Majesty to grant my wish. Regardless of the outcome of today's events, I have already become a laughingstock in the capital. Since your Majesty asked what I desire, my only wish is to go to the northern border and contribute my efforts to the nation." The emperor remained silent for a long time before finally sighing, "Approved." The Xiongnu envoy suddenly interrupted, "Replacing the bride for a political marriage is unheard of even among us Xiongnu. Is the Great Zhao trying to bully our people?" The emperor's face suddenly changed, as the nation's depleted resources left it powerless to confront the Xiongnu in battle. He could not afford to provoke the Xiongnu, so he took the initiative to propose a marriage alliance. Seeing the envoy's fury, he could only hasten to console him. "Although the Jiang family's daughter is a concubine born, she is the true Lotus Saint. I have long intended to bestow upon her the title of princess. Today, I grant her the title Princess Wangyu, and she shall marry into the Xiongnu with the full ceremonial honors of a princess. In addition, as part of the dowry, we will provide grain, land, and textile technology to the Xiongnu, hoping to forge a lasting alliance of peace and kinship between our peoples. Thank you for your Majesty's great kindness." I calmly kowtowed in gratitude. The crown prince spoke unwillingly from the side, "Forget worries. How is she worthy of forgetting worries? Someone with such malicious intentions deserves to be cut into 1,000 pieces." The crown prince was filled with deep-seated resentment and unwillingness. I have never understood why the crown prince has always held a grudge against me. In both lifetimes combined, I have had very few opportunities to see the crown prince, let alone provoke him. "Your Highness, the crown prince," I turned to look at him, "I don't understand why you harbor such great malice toward me. As far as I know, we've met no more than 3 times. What exactly have I done wrong to make your Highness despise me so much that you would allow others to ruin my reputation and take away my marriage prospects? 3 times were enough for me to recognize your viciousness." The crown prince's eyes were bloodshot. "Back then, just because of a piece of pastry, you pushed me hard into the frozen lake. If Chongning hadn't jumped in to save me, I would never have survived to this day. After being rescued and brought ashore, I saw you still sitting there at the banquet, calmly eating Osmanthus cakes, with a heart as venomous as yours. How dare you ask why?" I stood frozen in place. "When I was 8 years old, I attended my first palace banquet. The crown prince insisted on chasing the ducks on the frozen lake, even though I knew the ice was too thin to support anyone. Sure enough, he fell through the ice into the lake. I quickly jumped into the lake to rescue him. But for some reason, even though I was the one who saved him, he only seemed to despise and scorn me more." I asked with a trembling voice, "How did your Highness the Crown Prince recognize that it was Jiang Chongning who saved you?" The Crown Prince answered without a second thought, "Of course. It was because of the lotus mark on her forehead." I suddenly laughed. "So that's how it is," I sneered. "Your Highness actually thought that someone as frail as Jiang Chongning would save you from the ice pot. At that time, the lotus mark on her forehead didn't even wash off in the water. How miraculous." The Crown Prince, who had just been stomping around in a rage, suddenly froze. The Empress Dowager was furious. "Guards, take the Crown Prince away at once." The Empress, feeling utterly humiliated, left the banquet with the Crown Prince. I set off immediately with the imperial marriage decree and the Xiongnu envoy to proceed with the political marriage. Unexpectedly, just as the wedding procession reached the city gate, my legal mother intercepted us. "Stop!" the stepmother scolded sharply. She cried out to the bystanders with heart-wrenching anguish. "Look, this is the second daughter of the Prime Minister's family. She stole her elder sister's marriage. How could such a thing happen in this world? Everyone, come and see." The palace matron showed her no respect. Standing with her back ramrod straight, where did this so-called daughter of the Prime Minister come from? The one sitting inside is none other than the current Princess Wangyu. Princess Wangyu? What Princess Wangyu? The smug expression on my stepmother's face instantly froze. That's clearly that wretch Warning sitting inside. How dare you treacherous servants deceive your masters? Someone, drag that wretch out and show everyone what this disrespectful illegitimate child looks like. Before I could even speak, the Xiongnu envoy directly forced my stepmother back with his sword. I slowly lifted the sedan curtain. "What is this, stepmother? Have you come to congratulate me on my wedding?" "Bullshit." Stepmother's face turned ashen. "I've heard all about how you caused my daughter to be imprisoned and stole her fate. I've treated you so well. Do you have no sense of filial piety? Don't you believe I'll report you for disobedience to the authorities?" My grandmother, who rarely leaves the Buddha hall, actually appeared. She struck stepmother heavily with her cane. "You vicious woman, you've led the child astray, and you still dare to speak out of turn here. Look at the fine deeds your well-raised daughter has done. She had a miscarriage in public at the palace. And now all the court officials know that the crown prince had an illicit affair with the legitimate daughter of the prime minister's household before marriage." With every word she spoke, the legitimate mother's face grew paler. "Impossible, our plan was clearly foolproof." I watched coldly as she lay disheveled and pitiful on the ground. "Indeed, in the previous life, everything was foolproof, but I have returned from hell, and I will surely make those who hurt me in my previous life pay the price." The legal mother refused to give up and desperately clung to the grandmother. "Mother, you grew up in the palace since childhood and have a deep friendship with the Empress Dowager. Please save Chongning. Chongning is also your granddaughter. If it weren't for Warning taking the initiative to assume the responsibility of the marriage alliance, calming His Majesty's anger, and even receiving the title of Princess Wangyu to preserve the Jiang family's reputation, you wouldn't even be alive to stand here right now. If you want to beg, beg her." She suddenly fell silent, her pupils dilated, looking as if she had gone mad, and the last bit of her strength drained away. Her gaze slowly turned to me, and I curled my lips into a smile. I lowered the carriage curtain and said to the Xiongnu envoy, "Let's set off. I will never lend a hand to those who caused my miserable death in my previous life." The crown prince returned to his bedchamber, unable to stop recalling the words I had spoken. He rushed to the prison overnight to seek confirmation. He ordered someone to drag Jiang Chongning into the lake, but Jiang Chongning couldn't swim at all and was choking on water. After coming ashore, she was still blaming him. "Why did Your Highness the Crown Prince treat me like this?" Suddenly, he realized he had been deceived. Rising to leave, Jiang Chongning wouldn't let him go. Putting on a pitiful expression, she said, "Your Highness, please don't go. Take Chongning with you, won't you?" The Crown Prince turned a deaf ear and directly ordered the guards to throw her back into the prison cell, seeing that the Crown Prince had no intention of taking her out. Jiang Chongning dropped her act and began screaming hysterically in the prison cell like a madwoman. The Crown Prince looked at the deranged woman before him with disappointment, feeling nothing but disgust. All his beliefs crumbled in an instant. The Crown Prince released his grip and staggered backward. "For you, I broke off my engagement, angered the emperor, and even lost my position as heir to the throne. Yet in the end, the person I fell in love with was nothing but a mask you wore." He lowered his head and laughed until tears streamed down his face. Turning to leave the prison cell, he said, "Didn't you want to marry into the royal family? Then you can live in the royal prison for the rest of your life." When the news of the life sentence reached the Prime Minister's residence, the legal mother went insane on the spot. She rushed into the streets, telling everyone she met that she was the Crown Princess's mother, then moments later weeping and screaming Chongning's name. When the father returned from Jiangnan with a singing girl and discovered such a drastic change at home, he immediately divorced his principal wife. He then turned around and made the singing girl his official wife. The principal wife was so enraged that she died in Chungning's boudoir. The wedding sedan chair inexplicably stopped as it passed through Yangmen Pass. I lifted the curtain of the sedan chair and saw the envoy looking up at the plaque above the city gate. I also looked up. As if seeing the version of myself that was once hung on the city wall, the envoy listened for a long time before speaking. I once had a wife, and she died here. I suppressed my inner surprise. Was there someone else who had died here just like me? It seems the envoy must have loved her very much. He turned and gave me a deep look, as if trying to see into my heart. No, I have never seen her. I froze, until I felt the familiar palpitations in my chest, throughout the journey. The envoy was very considerate towards me, checking if the inn's bed was soft enough and whether the food suited my taste. It had already exceeded the normal level of concern from an envoy. Somehow, I blurted out, "How can someone I've never seen before be called a wife?" A faint smile touched his lips, his voice low and deep. "So this time, I want to meet her in person, to see what kind of person she is, whether she's as rumored, and why she's unwilling to marry me." I paused for a moment. "And do you know now?" A low chuckle traveled across the desert, reaching my ears. "I do. So you have already come in this lifetime." The end.